The topic for this month is no matter what, the promise of freedom, which is very apropos today. What I'd like to do first, before I do my reading of my quotes, is I'd like to have everyone have 30 seconds. In that 30 seconds, I would like you to invite you to have an intention, something that you want to carry with you for the rest of the week. It could be through this amazing music, the message, a friend that you meet today for the first time, or someone that you reconnect with, something that just you can carry and feel it in your soul. So let us go within to set an intention. Thank you. Here we go. Breathe in and exhale. Thank you. The promise of freedom. There was a man who was incarcerated for a very long time for his political beliefs. As he was released, a reporter asked him, "Well, how does it feel to finally be free?" And he said, "I don't know." And the reporter looked at him. He said, "Why?" And the man stood there and said, "Because I've always been free." I was talking to Kantanjali earlier, and she said something, and we were talking about music and the 4th of July. And one of her friends and her had a conversation about this country. And I've heard it before, but it was said so succinctly that we have a very young country. And in that, a country is one of humans and ideals. And we are very, very young. And she mentioned, her friend said, "Yeah, like adolescence." And I started to laugh because, yep, that's how it feels. And most of us know as we journey into this world, in the flesh and bones of being human, that we are here to figure out why we're here. Purpose and meaning. And for thousands of years, from Hinduism to Buddhism, to Zoroastrianism, to Christianity, to Islam, to Judaism, people are speaking about an essence of the human experience. And that is one that indivisible is not only indivisible because we're all one, but it is of oneness, and it is of things we cannot see. And if you've ever heard me speak my favorite quote, you're going to hear it probably 1,000 times more if I get the opportunity. But Heraclitus said this. He said, "Our eyes and our ears are bad witnesses because they do not speak the language of the soul." Ernest Holmes said, "God speaks in a language without a tongue, a universal language of sense, of intuition, and of instinct, that all creatures, all living things understand that." And Ernest Holmes came during a wonderful time. It was a time of earlier than my folks, but My folks were born in 1915 and 1916. And science, Oppenheimer, Einstein, Carl Jung, Freud, all these incredible minds coming to the forefront of science and spirituality and embracing diversity and embodying the past, that ancient wisdom, trying to have us be called. Because the struggle in the human life is one that is complicated. There is suffering. This country had slavery. This country had things that we could not keep that promise of freedom because we were ignorant. And I might say that we still kind of are. And I don't mean that in a way to put anyone or anything down, because it is difficult to stand on our faith when it doesn't align with what we see in people's actions. However, we all know that actions come from our thoughts, come from what we watch, what we read, what we see. And how do we align who we want to be in times where we need to raise our voices for injustice? It is a balance. And if anyone's had a teenager, they know what rebellion is. They know how complicated it can get. And that's the kind of ignorance I'm talking about. That you haven't explored and done self-reflection enough to go really deep, to understand how is it that a banana that I eat turns into this? How is it that when I cut myself, something within me knows how to heal that? There is magic in every moment of our existence. And whether we fly to the moon or Mars, we're still missing a big piece of what we're searching for. I found this quote from Jane Goodall, and it was kind of hilarious because she was saying that she wanted to take particular people in the government and send them to Mars. And I refrained the names. But I got a quote from her, and I was reading Spinoza, and I had realized for most of the week I did not do my practice, and I was watching a lot of news. I didn't feel so good at the end of the week. And because it's the balance. You look at what is in front of us, and then practice by listening to things that support the invisible life that makes us exist on this planet. So I'd like to read some things, and here we go. Whew. So, Jane Goodall, you cannot get through a single day without having an impact on the world around you. What you do makes a difference. And you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. Think about the actions you take every single day and multiply them by 1,000,000. Then multiply them by 1,000,000 times. Because even small actions will make for great change. We talk about this in this philosophy. Take this consciousness and multiply it. Consciousness is addictive. Belonging is an addictive thing to want. But what do we want to belong to? The promise of freedom. Spinoza said, what the world offers in exchange for your freedom is utterly counterfeit. I like that. And my last one is this. Viktor Frankl said, while we cannot control external circumstances, our ultimate freedom, our ability to choose our attitude and responses in any given situation, everything can be taken from a person except the last of the human freedoms. So I stand here today and say, wow, that is our legacy. Our legacy is that the promise of freedom is taking actions in the moment, every moment, with every stranger. I got triggered this week. I got triggered hard. And, I wasn't saying very nice things out loud in front of my television set as I was sitting there. I was having a big debate and I was arguing. And I realized that it is so imperative right now to find places where we could be so authentic without fear. But it stands on this foundation we have to create for ourselves. And this foundation is recognizing we don't know a whole lot. And therefore, we're complicated. The country's complicated. The world's complicated. But we do, if we sit still long enough, we can hear the truth. And what makes truth? That is something that each soul needs to figure out. It is not the truth of a world perception, a world of politics, of opinions, of religion. It is in the self-reflection that we take to say, I did this, could I have done better? I'm going to open myself and listen. Because the voice that God speaks in does not have a tongue. It is a sense. It is an intuition. It is an instinct that we have when we slow down enough to smell the flowers, to watch a kitten, to look at our loved ones and just sit in gratitude, to smile to a stranger, to help in the door for someone. Random acts of kindness get multiplied. Random acts of violence also get multiplied, but they're not as powerful as kindness. Alfred Adler talked about when you see someone that seems to have a high sense of superiority, and they're always pushing another's head down. We see that a lot nowadays. He said that is a true sign of someone who's insecure. A person who has a very good self-esteem does not put anyone down, does not push anyone lower than themselves to make themselves higher, but lifts and takes their hand and brings them up to their place of knowing, of understanding, of happiness, saying, come along with me, come with me. I'll help you up and out of where you're from. That is a sign because they have awakened. We must awaken within our own souls to be a spiritual warrior. And a spiritual warrior is not a battle of good versus evil. It's a battle at the micro level of our consciousness in one of the billion minds that are focused on the spiritual truth of this world and the legacy in which we will leave. From the words we say, our friends, our family, our legacy is building a foundation which will sustain all world perceptions, all world religions, all things of Nazism. But it's not without a struggle. And Viktor Frankl, he passed away in 1997. And he lived through the concentration camps and wrote the book, Man's Search for Meaning. We had to read it in college. And it left a big impact on me. He understood that whether it be the slaves that were in chains or the people in Auschwitz in chains, he knew that there was something that could never be chained. He knew that there was something in the freedom, in the promise of freedom. And it is spiritual, no matter what anyone says. It is of the essence of our essence. And the only way to unlock that is to go within and explore. Explore our perceptions, explore our rage, our injustice, and explore what we believe we stand on. If we believe we are all one, if we believe what we stand for here every Sunday, if we believe that, okay, what are we standing on? We are standing on a faith that says, yes, this is the journey, but the promise is something you don't understand yet, but you will know by the sound of your own soul. I can't tell you, you can't tell me. We could share inspirational things, but we must do the work. And as a spiritual warrior, it is not to conquer something, it is to awaken those who have fallen and do not remember who they are. It is so painful for me sometimes. And it's usually when I forget to remember to stand on what I believe in. When my friends pass, when things go and we look at immortality, especially as I know I'm getting older, and I know that there is something that infinite, that runs this universe, that is never born and will never die. And that is the promise of freedom. That is the essence that I stand on. We can choose to call it infinite intelligence, God, Jesus. We could call it a million billion names. But that's not the key. The key is to go in and find the path that you can not only walk on, but that you can stand on when your feet below you don't feel like they're going to hold your integrity. I noticed I was saying things like, right in line with getting triggered. No, I have to stop and spend that time to remember where I stand. So I invite you to all stand right now, if you so choose. Place your hand over your heart. And make a quiet pledge to yourself. Because every country is our country. Every person is our brother or our sister. Every light we see is a part of our light. Every creature is a part of the bigger picture in our soul. So let us close our eyes and say, whatever pledge to yourself or out loud that you pledge to hold with such regard and love, to self-reflect and decide what it is that matters to you, gives meaning to you, gives purpose to you. And with that, I would like you to say, yes. 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 And so it is. Right now, I'd like to do a prayer. And thank you for participating with me today. Let us go within, knowing that there is only one of us here, one life, one presence, where all things spring from. What a glorious, wonderful place to be is in the knowing and the remembering of who I am and who you are. Let us stand in balance of sometimes a vision that seems complicated and filled with strife. Let us remember that we stand on a foundation that we know, not from some ideology of how to think or what to think, but a knowing that there is something that speaks to us in a language without a tongue, in a language of sense, of intuition, and of instinct that tells us this way. Remember? This way. Let us be guided by that. Let us be moved by that. Let us stand on that when we feel the weight of the world. And as we stand on that, let us reach down and grab our neighbors, our friends, our family's hand and say, yes, meaning, purpose, value, moment by moment actions, that you make a difference, that your thoughts and your actions make a difference. And as we multiply that consciousness by 1,000,000, by 1,000,000,000, everything responds in harmony to yes. I release my word unto the law and recognize with great gratitude that it is done, and so it is.